It was 5:12 a.m. when the city yawned its first breath, and the streets of Pittsburgh were still wrapped in a sleepy silence. Henry Callahan, 64 years old and built like an old oak tree, climbed aboard his Route 17 bus as he had for the last 27 years. The vinyl seat creaked under his weight, and as he adjusted his cap, faded navy with the transit logo barely visible, he took a moment to glance at the old Polaroid taped to the dashboard. It was of a boy, maybe 10 years old, smiling as he waved from the steps of a yellow school bus. To the world, Henry was just a bus driver. Dependable, quiet, always early. But today, like every day for the past 9 years, Henry had a secret. And it started with a detour. By 6:03 a.m., the first passengers began to board, nurses heading to shift changes, janitors with thermoses of coffee, tired mothers with bundled children. Henry smiled at each one, offered a warm "morning, darlin'" or "take your time." No one noticed that just before the Franklin and 6th stop, Henry veered right instead of left. No one questioned it. The change was subtle, the delay unnoticeable. But for Henry, it was everything. Down Mulberry Street, behind a shuttered laundromat, sat a narrow alleyway. At the very end of that alley was a shelter, the kind few people talked about, and even fewer visited. Henry parked, turned off the engine, and stepped off the bus. Inside, a teenage girl in oversized clothes sat huddled on a bench, hugging her backpack like a lifeline. Henry approached gently. "Mornin', Leah," he said softly. Her eyes lit up. "Hey, Mr. Henry. I didn't think you'd come." "Of course I came. I always come, don't I?" Leah nodded, her face a mask of cautious hope. Henry offered his hand. "Let's get you to that interview." Every week, for nearly a year, Henry had quietly helped Leah, a runaway with a sharp mind and dreams of becoming a nurse, get to job interviews, shelters, and even night school classes. No one at the depot knew. He never told his supervisors. He always made up the time. But Leah wasn't the only one. There was Miguel, a veteran with PTSD who had lost his apartment but found solace in working at the animal shelter. There was Mrs. Lynn, a widow in her 80s, too frail to carry groceries, whom Henry secretly helped every Friday. And then there was the little boy in the photograph, Marcus. 9 years ago, Henry's grandson Marcus had gone missing. One moment he was playing in the yard, the next, gone. A tragedy without closure. No one ever found out what happened. The grief had hollowed out Henry's life. But instead of drowning in sorrow, he climbed back on his bus and drove. Somewhere along the line, he realized that helping others, kids like Leah, people like Miguel, didn't fill the void, but it gave the emptiness purpose. One icy morning, as Henry pulled up to a stop near the elementary school, he saw a boy. Thin, shivering, with a trash bag slung over his shoulder. The boy looked familiar. Something in his eyes. "Need a ride, son?" The boy hesitated, then nodded. As he climbed aboard, Henry's heart skipped. "What's your name?" "Jordan," the boy said. But Henry felt something stir. He watched the boy in the mirror for the next few stops. His mannerisms. The way he chewed his thumb when nervous. How he folded his backpack strap over and over again. Just like Marcus had. After a few days, Henry couldn't help himself. "Jordan," he said casually, "you ever go by another name?" Jordan froze. His eyes darted. "Why?" "Just curious. You remind me of someone." Jordan shook his head. But his voice trembled. "Nope. Always been Jordan." Henry nodded slowly. He didn't press. But that night, he pulled out the old family album. Compared pictures. Features. Eyes. A scar on the chin. Too many coincidences. He reached out to a contact at a missing children's organization, gave them a copy of the photo and Jordan's details. Days turned into weeks. Then one day, Henry got a call. "We think you're right," the voice said. DNA confirmed it. Jordan was Marcus. The boy had been taken, moved across states, and eventually abandoned by the people who took him. He'd bounced through shelters, foster homes, and streets, never knowing his real name, only fragments of memories, an old bus, a tall man with kind eyes, a cap with a badge. When they were reunited, Marcus broke down. "I knew your face, but I didn't know why," he whispered. Henry wept openly for the first time in years. They held each other in the parking lot of the shelter for what seemed like hours. Passers-by stopped, moved, paused. But the world faded away for grandfather and grandson. News spread. A story about a bus driver finding his missing grandson made headlines. But what the cameras didn't capture was what followed. Leah got her job. Miguel got a place of his own. Mrs. Lynn passed peacefully, surrounded by people who now visited her thanks to Henry's kindness. And Henry? He kept driving. But now, passengers greeted him with more than nods. Children hugged him. Strangers shared stories. Donations poured in for the shelter. A community began to look at each other differently. One afternoon, a teenager stepped on board. He looked lost, hesitant. "First time on this route?" Henry asked. The boy nodded. "Well," Henry said with a smile, "you're in the right place." Because Henry Callahan's secret mission had never just been about detours or reunions. It was about seeing people, not as problems, but as stories waiting to be heard. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the world needs most. A little more humanity. A few more detours. And a bus driver who knows the way.